Alright guys, so we're back. I've had a couple of days to play around with my budget gaming PC that I built a couple days ago, and I've got a pretty good idea of how it performs, so I'm going to show you guys some of the benchmarks that I ran, as well as some live gameplay, just so you guys can get a feel for this system and whether it's worth actually building or not. So if you guys didn't see the first video, link should be over here, I think, and you guys can check out the actual build process. But for you guys that are not familiar with it, here's the parts that I actually put in there. So it's got an Intel Pentium G4560, an Asus Strix B250F gaming motherboard, 8 gigabytes of HyperX Fury RAM. It's got a 480 gigabyte OCZ SSD, an XFX Radeon RX 470, a 4 gigabyte graphics card, a Be Quiet 650 watt Power Zone power supply, and a BitPhoenix Nova case. So, as I mentioned in the previous video, some of this stuff was sent to me by manufacturers to use in this build. Also, some of the things are stuff that I just had lying around that I kind of threw in here to complete the build. If you guys are building this from scratch, you probably can do a little bit better in price. The system that I have here configured runs about 650 bucks, but I think you could get it down to probably around 600 bucks. So I've left a link down in the description that you guys can check out to see what I would put together if I was buying everything new. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the benchmarks so you guys can see how this system performs. Okay, so before we get to the official benchmarks, I just want to show you guys my MSI Afterburner settings here. I'm not running an overclocked card at all. The only thing I did was actually up the power limit to plus 50%. So that the card will hold its boost clock of 1256, because without it, it tends to down clock about 100 megahertz. So that's the only thing I've changed here. All right, guys, so we're on take 2 of trying to get some CSGO footage. Right now I'm playing some Dust on Deathmatch, just hanging around. I had kind of a shitty game. I went 16-16 in my last game, so I decided to try it again. I was using the op. Now this time I'm using the M4A1. Let's see if we have a better game here using this versus the sniper rifle. So right now, I don't know, with CSGO, the frame rates are like all over the damn place. It's kind of hard to tell you just like one solid number, because right now we're sitting at about 152 FPS. But then we'll have some jumps where it spikes all the way up to like 200. And then we've got times where it'll go down to about 120. So I guess if you're using a high refresh rate monitor, I mean, it's gonna work for that easily. It's just the frames aren't really that consistent, which is kind of weird. But I think you guys can see there in the top right corner, MSI Afterburner overlay. Oh shit, I don't know what I was aiming at there. So yeah, right now about 165, 180 now. Now down to 130, 120. See, it's weird. And then I die. Oh my Jesus. What? Bruh, come on. So yeah, the frame rate's just kind of all over the place. We're anywhere from 120s all the way up to 200s. It's just weird. God damn it. Flick that shit. Come on, go there. Yeah. Oh. So I went 24 and 22 that time. So yeah, not too bad. But as you guys can see, this handles CSGO pretty well. So that's not an issue. Let's try another game. All right, guys. So we're in a new game now. This is a game called Toxic, which is an arena shooter. I think it's actually built on Unreal Engine. So we're running this, I think, at max settings. Oh. Oh, oh. Def on me. This is actually a fun little arena shooter. I'm kind of disappointed that more people don't play it, because it's actually pretty fun. Hovering about 170 FPS wise. I don't remember how to throw grenades. I will say with this CPU, there's not a lot of room for multitasking, as you'll see when we get into the more CPU intensive games. You really gotta, like, if you're playing games, then you're playing games. There's no, oh, let's watch Netflix while we play games or any of that kind of crap. So yeah, we're about 165 right now. 165, 170, depending on where we go on the map. Woo! So I went 14 and 11. All right, so I think we should start with the Unigine Valley benchmark. I guess this isn't really a CPU benchmark, but whatever. Let's actually just go ahead and try it here on the Extreme HD preset. All right, so finally that benchmark completed. So we got an FPS 48.6, score of 2034 with minimum and max frame rates of 24.5 and 94.8. All right, now for the Cinebench test. So this is gonna test how the CPU performs. It's going to use all of its cores to render this kind of 3D scene. So let's see how it does. Okay, so Cinebench score 366, which is, that's actually pretty terrible, to be honest. That is nothing impressive at all. And I'm sure it's just because we're lacking the cores, but yeah. All right, guys, so now it's time to get to the real benchmarks here. So I just want to point out that all of these benchmarks will run at 1080p. And what I normally do is run each benchmark 3 times, and then I will average the scores. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get to the first benchmark, which is Battlefield 1. So this was done on the Storm of Steel level, running in DX11 mode, very high settings with the GPU memory restriction off. So in this case, we had minimum frame rates of 42.05 and average frame rates of 82.39. Now, what I will mention here is that even though the frame rates look fine, the CPU usage was at 100%, between 100 and 90% almost the entire time. So the actual gameplay experience was not that great because it was filled with stuttering. For some reason, it didn't really show up in the frame times, but let me just assure you, is not the greatest experience. And it actually got worse when I went into multiplayer and tried a 64-player Conquest map. In that case, we saw dips below 30 FPS when they were normally running at, when the average frame rate was normally about 60 FPS. So yeah, it just wasn't a good experience at all. There were a lot of, anytime something actually happened, like a large gunfight or explosions, the frame rate would dip a lot, and it would dip to a frame rate that was so low that you could noticeably see it, and it happened pretty often. So what I would say in this case is that if you are planning on playing a Battlefield 1, this is not the CPU for you. This game is too demanding on CPUs. You need something with more cores. I know even guys with i5s were complaining about the CPU usage in this game. Now, moving along to another game, I tested Doom on the Foundry level. This was running on the Vulkan API with the high preset TSAA on, TSSAA, whatever it is, I forget. But in this case, we had minimum frame rates of 71.12 and average frame rates of 132.86. Now this game ran really well. It was super smooth, no complaints. This is probably easily the best running game out of anything that I tested, but I kind of come to expect that from Doom. It's just buttery smooth all the time. Now I did test a DX12 title here, and in this case we tested Forza Motorsport 6 Apex. So this was tested on the Brands Hatch track the indie circuit, the one where it's raining. This was on high settings with MSAA at 2x. So in this case, we had minimum frame rates of 21.30 and average frame rates of 80.28. Now this game actually did better than I thought it would. There are some frame dips when you get into high traffic areas or when you're running through puddles and stuff like that. But for the most part, it actually held its own. So not too bad there. I would like those minimum frame rates to get a little bit higher, but that's just the game as it is. Now, I did run a CAN benchmark, and in this case, it was Metro Last Light, running at max settings, SSAA off, and PhysX off. And in this case, we had minimum frame rates of 9.45 and average frame rates of 65.90. Now, I wouldn't pay too much attention to that minimum frame rate. For some reason, with Metro Last Light, whenever you're running the CAN benchmark, it always has a stutter, kind of like right in the beginning, and I'm not really sure what the deal is with that, but I can assure you that's not something that you will experience when you're actually playing the full game. Now, I did make sure to get in one of the most popular PC games here in Grand Theft Auto 5. Tested this in DX11 mode, high settings, MSAA at by 2, softest shadows, and advanced settings off. Now, this is the CAN benchmark, by the way, and what I do is actually average the frame rates of all of the scenes. So just be aware of that. Minimum frame rates here, I got 34.55, and average frame rates was 66.81. So again, this game actually did better than I thought it would as well. Even during actual gameplay, it held its own. There was no real issues with stutter or anything that I would consider game breaking. All right, and the last game that I tested was The Witcher 3. So this was on the Nilfgaardian connection, I think I said that right, on the high preset with high post processing and hairworks turned off. And in this case, we had minimum frame rates of 35.88 and average frame rates of 65.70. Now, this game did exceed my expectations as well from a performance standpoint. It doesn't really look like it in the frame times for some reason, but this game actually felt pretty well, pretty smooth. I don't know, maybe if it's because the dips were not really below 40 minus a couple areas, but it actually did fairly well altogether. It felt actually even better than when I tested it with the FX8370, which is nice. So this game ran pretty well. None of the games I would consider to have game-breakingly bad performance except for Battlefield 1. So if you're considering the G4560 and something like an RX 470, it would definitely play games, even AAA titles, at 1080p, 60 FPS for the most part, as long as you're using like high settings. So it's definitely not an issue there, but if you do happen to like to play a certain type of game that is CPU demanding, you may want to avoid this CPU. So if you like Battlefield 1, the G4560 is not for you. If you like source games, if you like, little indie platformer games or arena shooters and certain AAA titles, then it's fine. But anything that's going to be super demanding on the CPU, I would avoid. Also, I do have to mention this, during the actual gameplay, the CPU usage was quite high pretty much the majority of the time, somewhere like 70 to 80%, sometimes even higher. So if you're a multitasker, you like to have Chrome open or some other crap going while you're playing games, you also may want to avoid this CPU as well. Again, as long as unless you're playing something that's not really demanding, but for AAA titles, just steer clear. So I just want to mention that, but overall, considering the price, I think $65 for the CPU and then like $170 for the GPU, not a bad combo considering the performance that we get here. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and how long do you think a system like this will last? Is it going to meet the same fate as the G4560, or do you think it will have a little bit longer life? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video if you guys like this type of content. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'm going to get out of here, guys. Until next time, see ya.